Maruti Suzuki's People Technology presents Suzuki Connect with Navigate to Car and many other features.
Watch more, feel more. Dell.
And so the curtain is all set to come down on the Super 12s of the ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2021. It's a game that is insignificant after yesterday's happenings in the tournament because Namibia will bow out of this tournament as the most impressive associate nation, and India, whose fate was determined essentially when those top three teams played each other in the first 10 days of the World Cup, will also move out. It's 150th T20 international for India, but it'll be a day of emotion as Virat Kohli has the chance to lead India for the last time in T20 international cricket. It'll be the last time he'll lead in T20 cricket now that he's given up the reins of RCB as well. It's also one final international assignment for Ravi Shastri, Bharat Arun, and a number of the other coaching staff members you'd think as a new era beckons with Rahul Dravid's incumbent appointment. This is Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, powered by Dell. Tom Moody is here, Peter Borren is here, Ajit Agarkar is here, and I think we could almost sense as Virat Kohli wins his last toss as T20I captain Ajit that there's a little bit of emotion as this is one format he gets ready to part his leadership role with.
I'm sure there is. I mean, he's had his T20 record as captain is pretty phenomenal. I mean, if you look at the numbers, a lot of them obviously in bilateral series. This is the only World Cup that he's led. So it's just been that World Cup. So, there was one around the corner next year. I thought it would probably be after that, but he's made the call. The win percentage tells you that he's won more games than he's lost in a format which sometimes is probably the toughest format to get consistency. So good numbers. Ideally would have loved an ICC trophy, which seems to elude him so far. But he'd be proud of those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, isn't it, Tom? 66% win rate. India have had this extraordinary win percentage in T20Is, and yet it's all that we tend to remember at times is the lack of an ICC tournament or an ICC trophy success. And how would you look back as Virat Kohli's era as T20 captain?
Well, ultimately, you are judged by the biggest events, aren't you? And by far, the World Cups are the biggest events, and every country builds towards those events, and it's not a build that takes weeks. It's it happens 12 to 18 months prior to a World Cup. You start preparing for that campaign. So he would be obviously disappointed. Ravi Shastri would be disappointed not to have ticked that box. They've ticked many other boxes in their partnership as captain and coach, but they'll be sort of looking back on their T20 campaign frustrated. But at the end of the day, India have been a powerhouse in T20 cricket, and to be fair, there's no surprise because they have got by far the best domestic T20 tournament in the IPL, which just can't help but develop and produce wonderful players because it's such a perfect grounding to produce superstars.
And that is the sentiment that Herod Erasmus shared at the toss. He's up for this, Peter. Namibia are going to play India for the first time in a T20I. Erasmus says India, the biggest sport cricketing nation there is. So this is a milestone moment, you think? And perhaps there is something different about just playing India for the first time in an international game. You played India in that 2011 World Cup. Feelings a bit different when you come up against, yes, the biggest cricketing nation there is.
Yeah, absolutely. Fond memories for me. We got to play them at the Kotler. I think there was maybe 25,000 people there. It was pretty packed, but it might be a little bit different today. But in terms of Namibia, it's obviously a huge day. It doesn't get any bigger, and they. It's been tough. It's been tough for Scotland and Namibia in this tournament. We have to say that. I have some sympathy for them. If I look back on, as you talk about that 2011 World Cup, where we went through, we lost 6 games, I think. And the next time we were at a world event was in Bangladesh in 2014, and we did an awful lot better because of that experience in 2011. And these two teams will be no different. They're going to learn a lot from this. I think it's also worth noting. I think it's tough playing the subcontinental teams in these conditions when you're just not used to it. Again, 2014 when we got bowled out by Sri Lanka for 39, we then went on and lost to South Africa by 4 runs, a game we should have won. Played a very competitive game with New Zealand, and then we bet England comfortably. Those teams, they're less of a problem. If you look at Scotland and Namibia in this group, they're really going to struggle against Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. Whereas New Zealand was probably their one chance for an upset. And you see the Scottish game against New Zealand, they lost by 16 runs and didn't bowl well, Scotland. But it's really tough. And you look at those other, if you think of the teams like New Zealand and England, Australia, their players are exposed to this, to what is different, playing subcontinental teams in these conditions, the skills that they have, it's very different. So, yeah, a huge day for Namibia, of course, but mainly looking back on this whole tournament, at the process of learning and what they, in terms of how much better they will be next time, and what they have to maybe adapt, but even just the experiences of facing these guys will hold them in good stead.
Yeah, and they're going to have a bat first after India won the toss. So Virat Kohli's toss record has significantly improved after he's turned a year older. So he'll take that at least from this tournament. But India are going to have a bowl first. They made a change too. They've got in Rahul Char for Varun Chakravarti. We thought they might give some of those players sitting on the bench a game, Ajit. So fair enough. Rahul Char gets a game. Would you like to see a few more changes? I thought some of the senior players, even the batters, could have had a rest, but India have just made one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit surprised actually. Ishan, someone like Ishan Kishan, even Bhuvi for someone who's been, we kept talking about how his form was a little bit of good opportunity to give him a go. So I'm a bit surprised that that's the only change that they've done, because whatever 11 India put on the park, they should back themselves to win this game if they play well enough. So a bit surprised there aren't more changes, but at least Rahul Char gets an opportunity, and again they stick to three spin options with Hardik Pandya likely to bowl seam up if needed. But I would have ideally liked to see some more changes.
There's also a New Zealand series coming up in a few days. Now, we don't know who's going to be around and who's not, Tom, for that, but would you have been tempted to make at least a few more changes?
Yeah, look, without a doubt. Obviously, you want to play, your opponent as much respect as possible. But at the end of the day, as Ajit said, I don't think it's really going to make a huge difference with the quality of what India puts on the park if they make those adjustments, whether it be Bhuvaneshwar Kumar for Jasper Bumrah, whether they also consider a couple of those players that may be featuring in those upcoming matches, which I think is, only within a week or two when they return back to India. So, look, again, in a way, I don't mind it, because it shows that they mean business and they're dead set to finish this disappointing campaign with a convincing win, and they want to put what they believe their best 11 on the park.
Do you fast bowlers ever get asked, Ajit, if you want a break? Bumrah's played what? World Test Championship, 4 tests in Australia, IPL every game, and World Cup every game. Did anyone ask him if he wants a break?
Yeah, I think if anyone, Bumrah's probably got the longest of the breaks. He didn't play the series in India. There was like a month and a half or 2 months between the first test in England, not the WTC, but the first test against England and the IPL when it got suspended. So if anything, but I'm sure they would have had a chat if he's feeling good enough. I don't think if someone's feeling fit and not really carrying any fatigue or any niggle, would want to miss an international game. But I just feel going forward, there are a couple of things that India will have to look at. I think as much as we keep talking about how strong the bench strength is, or how much depth there is in the fast bowling, it's more as far as the tests are concerned, or the test teams concerned. With white ball cricket, suddenly if Bhuvi doesn't get back to his best form, then you've got to start looking. Deepak Chahar's not here. Shardul Thakur hasn't quite impressed in this series. So there seems to be over dependence on Bumrah and Shami at the moment, and you can't have just two guys carrying your attack in every series. And not that one game is going to change. I'm sure the 3 games against New Zealand, there will be opportunities to try people. But there was certainly another opportunity here, even though it's a World Cup game. That 15, anyone from that 15 should be good enough if they perform well to win tonight. So, I think it's a missed opportunity to try some of the guys for sure.
Fair enough. One change for Namibia as well, Peter, as Jan Freiling is back, missed the last game due to dehydration, so we expected him to return. Stock goes out. That's probably Namibia's best 11 then?
Yeah, you'd think so. Over this tournament, Freiling he's been excellent, hasn't he? And I mean, Birkenstock didn't do a bad job in his one game. Actually, he did okay, but they missed him Freilich in the last game when they ended up going for quite a few towards the end. His 4 overs have been pretty crucial for them and will be tonight.
Yep, we've also got the challenge of them having to put some runs on the board for their left-arm seamers to come into the game. Imagine, we've not had that giant killing in the Super 12s. Imagine if Namibia can at least push India closer, even upset them, what that would do for Namibian cricket, unlikely as it may be. But I'd like for Tom to weigh in on Ajit's comments as well. Interesting that he makes that comment, Tom, on India's perceived depth when it comes to their fast bowling resources. Where do you stand on that? Is there a lack of, you could say, diversity in the type of fast bowlers that they have? Could they try and look at new talent there? Because you think Bumrah, Shami, Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, they cover a lot of bases, and yet it seems like they're falling short.
Yeah, look, I find it interesting, and again, I'll throw it back to Ajit after I've made this comment. But I think in white ball cricket over the last 12 months, we've seen a significant challenge for bowlers because what we've seen is the art of swing, and those specialist swing bowlers have been nearly ushered out of the game because for whatever reason, I think it's the ball because the conditions don't seem to change a huge amount. And to me, that seems to be the most common thing. And having spoken to a couple of swing bowlers about this topic over recent months, they also believe it's the ball. So once you're sidelining your specialist swing bowlers, all you've got left is pace or extreme off pace. So you lack that real variety and diversity because of one single thing, and that is the ball has I think changed significantly. So your likes of your Bhuvaneshwar Kumars, even your Trent Bolt, we don't see him swinging the ball like we've seen in the past. That beautiful in swing from left arm over. So to me, that then challenges the real diversity of what you can offer to a pace attack. Yeah, you can have a left arm and a right arm. You can have someone that bowls, if you've got them in your armoury, someone that can bowl up to 150. But apart from that, you're taking a huge element of the game away from pace bowlers.
Ajit, like to weigh in on that?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. I think what we saw at the start of the World Cup seemed to be whatever these balls were in the World Cup seemed to give a bit more swing. IPL, we didn't see anything at all. And that obviously made the job a lot tougher. And in spite of being in the UAE, where the grounds are bigger, you could get away a little bit. Pitches were a bit slower. But on flat pitches in India, if it doesn't swing earlier on, it is going to be hard work. It stopped swinging for some reason, latter half of this World Cup as well. Doesn't seem like, Trent Bolt has changed the way he's bowled, bowled a little bit quicker, and he can do that, but not every swing bowler can. My point, just in terms of depth, was maybe India now going forward, and obviously they can't do it in this one game, but going forward might have to zero in on bowlers, whether it's swing or pace, who are their specialist white ball bowlers, because that is where I think, that's the one area. You thought that maybe Shardul Thakur and Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, if they did well, you've got enough cover to Bumrah and Shami. But at the moment, maybe it's the lack of the swinging ball. Maybe you need some different skill sets. Maybe it's form. But India might need to, because the World Cup's next year, you still want a group of 5 or 6 guys in case there's loss of form or particularly injury to one of your main guys, which you hope doesn't happen closer to a big tournament. But that could happen. So just identifying who those next guys are. There's enough talent we've seen in the IPL. It's just about then giving them enough opportunities over the next 12 months or so.
Okay, if I could just extend on that, and I'm finding this conversation fascinating. Of course, we reiterate India's problems in this tournament were more with bat than with ball, but this is now, trying to pave the roadmap going forward. Ajit, from the bowlers that you have seen in the IPL round, who would you identify to try and put into or try and give a long rope to fill that white bowler specialist T20 sort of role? We have seen guys like Bolt, Hazelwood, Chris Wokes, Saudi, in spite of being in that swing bowler category or not the express pace category, they found ways to be effective. Now, who can fill those sorts of roles for India if the likes of Bhuvi and Deepak Char may be limited?
Oh, wow. You put me on the spot right now. I'll have to think of some names now.
Well, let's discuss names, shall we? Avesh Khan's been bowling well in the Mushtaq
I'll
Ali.
give you
Yeah,
one. I'll give
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I'll give you one. With Australia in mind, I would definitely take someone like a Mohammad Siraj, who I
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
bowls quick enough, but he bowls very good links for Australia. So he can challenge, constantly challenge the batsman with just a little bit of pace, and he's not extreme pace, but he's got enough. But he's got skill, and he doesn't rely necessarily on swing. So if the ball's not swinging, he's got the ability to nip the ball into the right-hander away from the left-hander, which I think is a pretty good asset to have if there's no swing. So he'd be one you definitely, I think, build towards that campaign.
Ajit?
Yeah, I mean, he'd be the first name. I mean, he was there and thereabouts with the white ball team as well. For some reason, fell out of favor. So, and he showed enough in the IPL. Like Tom says, the skill sets that he has as a bowler, runs in all the time. Even towards the end of the innings, when he did bowl for RCB, bowled quickly and could bowl fire in the Yorker as well. And Australia with the new ball, you could still bowl hard lengths with the bigger ground. So, look at some of the left armers perhaps coming through. Someone like a Umran, you don't know what his progress will be over the next 12 months. I'm not saying sort of draft him in the Indian team immediately, but keep an eye on that because they'll want a group of 6 or 7 guys. I think India plays a fair few T20
Yes.
internationals from here on, which obviously gives them that opportunity. Plus, there's another IPL before that. But I think that's certainly, and I think batting's the thing that has let India down. I don't think the bowlers have done anything wrong in this
Of
World
course.
Cup. It's just going forward. They perhaps need more cover or may need to find more options as far as the bowling's concerned than their batting. I think you can see there are enough batters waiting in the wings if they have to replace any of the current guys.
Yeah. I'm sure Tom Moody's already drafted the Umar and Malik plan, hasn't he, for the next 2 years? So don't need to don't need to go to him for that just yet. But Peter's been listening patiently. Peter, I wonder if you want to weigh in on this in terms of whether there's something lacking or missing in this Indian bowling lineup in comparison to some of the finer bowling lineups we've seen. We know Australia have been great. South Africa look like a serious bowling threat. There are no wrist spinners either in this team. I wonder what all you change.
Well, we talked about it the other day. What do they miss? I don't think they're missing an awful lot, and I think it's important. Obviously, a left armour, but as Tom says, the ball's not swinging much, and we saw that Shah even or Trent Bolt, whatever, it might swing for an over, but by the third over, it's not swinging. So, I think they've got their bases covered. We've said that the batters have let them down in this tournament, but I think it's important to keep some perspective from in terms of this Indian team. They lost 2 games at the start of the tournament and 2 games of T20 cricket. And of course, they didn't play their best cricket, and there was a lot of chat about how they went about it, particularly with the bat and their approach. But it's 2 games of 2020 cricket, and we see it. We've seen Virat Kohli and this team's record over the last few years. They're obviously winning 65% of their games. So it's not exactly the end of the world, and perhaps there is the discussion that thinking about the format of this World Cup. We've seen a lot of dead rubbers. We've seen net run rate come into play a lot, and I just think like if you could add 2 more games, 2 versus 3 maybe from each group, crossover playoffs. It's only 2 more games, so it doesn't make it a really stupidly long World Cup. That would have added a lot to this because South Africa, for example, what did they won 4 games
Yes.
out of 5, and they go home. We could have had New Zealand playing against South Africa and Australia playing against India. Obviously, the 2 best teams at this World Cup have been England and Pakistan. They can go straight through to the semis. We have 2 more games, and this whole last week would have been far more interesting. And I don't know. For me, I think we go on about India perhaps failing at this World Cup, and it's true. You have to win those crunch games at world events. We totally get that. But in terms of a format and keeping perspective over it being just 2 games of T20, I think it could be done very differently this tournament, and it doesn't take much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more the end of the world in our parts of the world, but things change every day, right? Tomorrow will be another day. But Virat Kohli is all set to play his last T20I game. We already showed you his numbers as captain for India. It's quite something, the win percentage. If you look at the list on the all-time captains as well, where he stands, for the highest win percentage, then you wouldn't mind taking number 4. Asghar Afghan and Afghanistan have enjoyed this rich T20 record, albeit against some lesser or lower ranked teams. Sarfraz Ahmed, as Pakistan, were number 1 ranked for a while, and Virat Kohli stands at number 4. It's also the last game for Ravi Shastri, Ajit, and I wonder if there's perhaps a comment to be made now on how you look back at the Kohli Shastri era. We'll discuss this more in detail perhaps at the end of the show, but there seems to be a clear distinction that must be made now between what they've achieved in Test cricket versus their humble achievements in white ball cricket at ICC events.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, they lost in the semi-finals 2019 World Cup, so it's not as if they completely, blew up in that one. This one must be a real disappointment. Yes, they played Pakistan and New Zealand first up, and those two teams played well. India couldn't quite answer the questions that were asked, but they would have expected to beat one of those teams and progress. And once you progress to a semi-final, India's got enough experience. So yeah, that. Apart from that, I think in general, you look at most bilateral series, or clearly the test teams made a lot of progress, particularly traveling away from India. In India, I think generally India has been very good over the years. But yeah, that there is no doubt. I mean, you get judged on big trophies, and unfortunately for Ravi and Virat, they haven't managed to get one in the opportunities that they've had. But you look at the numbers, and the numbers are quite good when those two have been at the helm for India. That ICC trophy clearly will be something that will always be against their name, that they couldn't quite manage to do it.
I wonder
They
if,
just
if that
they
is
just
something
basically
that's
need to avoid they need to avoid New Zealand. I think that's the key
yeah.
for India.
Yeah. Essentially that. Essentially that. New Zealand keep popping up in the way, don't they? Semi-final, World Test Championship, and all that. But I wonder, Tom, if you were in Ravi Shastri's shoes right now, whether it's almost unfair that you'd be judged by your lack of success in the ICC events rather than what's been a phenomenal Test side that they've managed to see, invincible virtually at home, unprecedented Test series wins in Australia twice, perhaps one in England now with that 5th Test next year. But just thoughts on what you'd feel like if you were coaching in this period with such a stark difference in red ball and white ball.
Yeah, look, I'd be very proud of obviously what they've achieved in Test cricket. One, more importantly, away from home, not so much at home, because India has historically always dominated at home, and I can't see that changing. But away from home, I think they have achieved some pretty special milestones and memorable milestones. Probably most importantly, the recent win in Australia, I think, was a significant one, given the circumstances of a depleted side and the comeback of a demoralising Test loss in Adelaide. So there are some nice sweet spots there, but ultimately the big nuggets are your ICC events, and that would be a lump in the throat. Those, whether it be the 50 over World Cup, the 20 over World Cup, or the Test Championship, they're the real pieces of memorabilia you want to get your hands on, because they can't be taken away. Test series come and go. They're great and they're important to win, but the real events are these big ICC events, and to start collecting that silverware is something that will last forever.
Yeah, I think it's something which, of course, we'll discuss more in detail, but that is the reality of the situation right now. They will remember Shastri and Kohli as as a pair that couldn't quite go the distance at ICC events. Now, maybe I've had a tournament to be proud of already. They've been impressive. They've beaten a team that's higher ranked than them in Scotland, and they've had their moments, haven't they? Beating Ireland and Netherlands en route to this semi-final. But that's what Pierre de Bruyne has said. The expectations that they came here with, they've announced themselves as a cricketing nation, and the story of the country is that it's become a global story and an inspiration for a lot of people back home in Namibia. And as we look at their performers, we know that David Wiese has been outstanding for them. That's been their campaign. Of course, they take great pride in beating teams like the Netherlands and Ireland, who have significantly more experience, you think, at ICC events. So too Scotland. And otherwise, there have been moments even in those defeats to the higher ranked teams. Erasmus has been right up there, even though he has had that broken finger. David Wiese, he's actually number 2 in the 6-hitting list. He hits a few today and he'll get to number 1. So he could be eyeing that at least as something to take away from the T20 World Cup in 2021. And their left arm seamers have also been excellent, haven't they? Ruben Trumpelman has made a name for himself. Jan Freiling returns today, so they've been a good side, haven't they? Peter, Namibia, one last outing at this World Cup, and I wonder what you'd make. They've clearly been the most, you could say, the most impressive of the associates. And a game against India, if they ought to even push India close, that'd be something.
Yeah, I really hope so. I'm quite glad that they're batting first. Actually, I hope. Obviously, I think there'll probably be a few people who were disappointed in that toss, but they get a fresh opportunity without any run rate pressure or anything to go out there and express themselves. And it's one thing I've sort of thought with Namibia this tournament. They've been very disciplined, without perhaps taking enough risk at times. I think they've sort of played a very disciplined game to their. They've obviously got their limitations, and they sort of stick to that, and that's great. But I wouldn't mind seeing maybe a little bit more risk taken by them. I think the real story for me in this tournament for Namibia is the captain Gerard Erasmus. I mean, I saw a close up of his finger the other day. It looks like it's pretty much destroyed. I think he had it operated on before the tournament. He's going to have it operated on again. He's been pretty inspirational. He's their best player, but he's out there. You can see with most of his shots, he can hardly hold the bat, and he is a class player. Whether he's from Namibia or wherever he would be from, he's a very good player. He puts himself at deep mid-wicket at the death. He's put himself on the line the whole time. We saw him get a great run out the other day. The fact that he's out there, he's a real proper leader. And he actually epitomises, I think, Namibian cricket in general. They're a hard-working, passionate bunch of guys. And for them to play India today at this stage is credit to him and his team. But I think, for me, anyone who's seen any of Namibia this tournament, you have to take your hats off to the coaching staff, but also mainly to that leader that they have in Gerard. And I hope today that, like Richie Berrington did yesterday against Pakistan, I hope that Gerard can show everyone in the world just what a good player he is today against India.
Yep. Yeah, let's hope they sign off with a performance to remember. Game's already underway. We'll pick up this chat. There's a lot to look forward to in Indian cricket, Namibian cricket, a little bit to look back on. We've done that to death already about Indian cricket, but we'll see what this game offers us to talk about. Tom Moody, Ajit Agarkar, Peter Borren. Join us at halftime then on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket Info T20 Timeout, powered by Dell. Final Super 12 fixture. Enjoy it.
Maruti Suzuki's People Technology presents Suzuki Connect with Navigate to Car and many other features.
Watch more, feel more, Dell.